I'm Bianca Cotton, host of Behind the Confident Smile, where we inspire women to walk in love, live in hope, and be healed from past hurts. Today, I am joined by LaSandra Hutchinson, where we are going to be talking about her journey to becoming a widow and mothering 4 children after being a stay-at-home mom. Whew. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. So we're going to journey back to those precious teenage years where falling in love seems to come so much easier, right?
So much easier. Yes. Yes.
When did you meet your husband?
Well, Kenneth and I met in high school. I'm going to tell the story how he told it. We had 2 different versions of this same story. I had a version that went like, we went to the same high school. We were friends. We became close friends sophomore year. And then we started dating in college. He had a version of the story that went like, it was Honors English room 108, Miss Thomas class. One day I looked up and I saw this freshman girl walk in with her long hair. She had on a white t-shirt and blue jeans and these big plastic rings, Bermuda rings. And he would say, and I looked at her and said, "Who is that Mexican girl?" He was basically like, from then on, like I was smitten. I don't remember him that year. I don't remember meeting him to the next year, the following year. But this was this really funny story because he was basically always talking about how he, just like, it was like to him, like love at first sight. Oh, wow. Even though I didn't even notice it.
Love at first sight for him.
For him. But I remember, so I met Kenneth for my version of the story is sophomore year. It was AP World History class. Mm-hmm. He sat behind me and just cracking jokes. So the teacher's teaching, we're supposed to be working, and the whole time he's in my ear talking about the teacher, talking about the girl in front of me, talking about the guy on the side of us. And he was really funny, like funny, not silly funny, but like crying, tears, holding your stomach, I can't breathe, I'm falling out funny.
Good laugh.
Yes. So he's behind me doing that, and I'm trying not to fall out and like laugh and be all over the floor. I'm getting in trouble. And we just became quick friends. I don't know what was like the catalyst for these moments where he started telling these jokes, right behind me. But probably about a year later, I realized that like he was sitting behind me, the seat directly behind me in every single class that we had together. And I was
that
like,
was intentional.
This is it. I was like, is this intentional? Because we could choose our own seats. So I was like, oh, okay. So yeah, and I just thought it was cute. And I thought it was endearing, honestly. I thought like, this is really endearing. Like, this is really cool. And I don't know, we just kind of chose each other as best friends. We started partnering on every class project together. We started studying at the library. We started a student club called the Student Action Committee. Like, we just started doing everything, going to the same extracurricular activities downtown. Like, we just started doing everything together. So up all night on the phone talking about life and music and family and God and just everything, dreams and goals. So, yeah.
That sounds so beautiful.
It was like a little movie. Yeah, it's like a little movie.
So y'all smitten with each other, doing everything together, graduate high school, you go to college.
Yeah.
Did you all go to the same college?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, even still in high school, we were just friends. Like, we were just friends. Even I didn't know he was smitten. I didn't know he was smitten. I didn't know. I just thought we were like close, like family, But when it was time to go to college, I basically convinced him to go to school with me. That was how I looked at it. And then he said he followed me there. So when he would start telling that story to his students, and he would say, "Listen, if you've been the guy put in the friend zone, if you've been friend zone, don't worry, just hold on."
And the waiting.
You're right. Just keep waiting. Just wait. She gonna come around. So yeah, people thought that was so funny. So yeah, he said he followed me to college, and we started dating in college, junior year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when did marriage come about?
Junior year, like, yeah, when we started dating, we immediately started talking about getting married. So, at the time too, we were at a church where people got married very young. That was like the norm in the culture. So, we kind of automatically started leaning in that direction. Plus, it kind of made sense because you already like my family. At that point, by the time we got married, we had been friends and close and talking every day for 7 years. So this is a decade of, a close relationship, even though it was a friendship.
Yeah.
But it's also like intimate. This became like a family member. So he became like family to me. So yeah, we started talking about getting married, and we wanted to get married on campus because we were at Northwestern together. So we decided we were going to, this didn't make no sense. This is that 21-year-old brain. This is just didn't make no sense. We said we're going to get married 3 weeks before we graduate so we can get the student discount on the campus chapel. So I'm planning the wedding and taking my finals. I'm planning the wedding and trying to get 20-page papers done, the next day.
Y'all were trying to save money.
It made no sense. So, I mean, looking back, I'm like, what and why did they even let us do this? But anyway.
Such a sweet memory.
It was so funny, so crazy. But yeah, everybody came to the wedding. Like, the wedding was open. So, like, friends on campus that went to the school could come. And, of course, our family and friends were there. But, yeah, we got married in June 2004 on campus, 3 weeks before we graduated.
Wow. That's one for the books. Like, for real. That is one for the books. So,
yep.
13 years later of marriage, and your husband suddenly passes away. 20 years of friendship, relationship. Now your world is completely turned upside down. Bring us into that moment of Kenneth is no longer present with us.
So Kenneth, he was diagnosed with cardiomyopathy when he was 33. So that was in 2015. Nevertheless, he started doing better. He had a cardiologist that was working with him, and his, health started to kind of turn around. In 2017, though, his grandmother passed away, and he went into just a heavy time of grief, just shoulder shaking, crying. And I was like consoling him, and he just was really, really, really hurt and brokenhearted. And the day of her funeral, he passed away. He died a sudden death. So that was like a movie. When you talk about the word surreal, everything felt very surreal, to the point where I had to talk to myself, like, LaSandra, Kenneth passed away. If I'm driving in a car, I have these conversations with myself, just trying to ground myself, because it's so extreme. It's such an earthquake. It's such an earth-shattering experience. I had to do a lot of just like, Kenneth is not coming back. You have to get a plan. Kenneth is not coming back. He passed away. Like, just trying to get myself continually stay in the reality of that. Because that was the enormity of that was just, it was surreal. Every day it was just like, I can only really accept that in a certain measure. You know what I mean? I can only like eat that in small chunks because that was just so big to me. But I thank God for family and friends. I thank God for people at church. I thank God for cousins and people from high school. We had been together as friends so long. That was also the beauty of it. Pretty much almost everybody that knew him knew me because of the longevity of that relationship. So when it was high school folks, it was like Kenneth and LaSandra, they knew both of us. It was college folks, Kenneth and LaSandra, they knew church people. Everyone knew both of us. So I think that also created just a lot of support, just a lot of people showing up in different ways. And I'm thankful for that, especially the first couple of years. It helped me not feel so alone. It helped me feel like, okay, there's some level of a safety net. The people on his job were amazing, like his colleagues. It was just a lot of different groups of people that were very supportive of me and the kids. So, yeah. That honestly, I feel like the first 2 years is really just trying to get grounded and I was kind of just trying to get through the day and the week, whatever it was, best we could.
What did a day in your life, those initial moments after his passing, look like with 4 children who were how old at the time?
At the time, they were 6, 8, 10, and 12.
Right.
Got up, barely got them to school. Barely got them to school, just would get them to school, probably running really late, but we were there. And then for me, especially in the first few months, I was just crying all day, really. I would be crying all day. It would just be like, that's what I do. Most of the days, I don't know, it was like a blur. But I know I was praying a lot and I was just crying a lot. And I think that I was just trying to then also handle the business of life, because life doesn't stop. So you still got to pay your car note, pay your bills, go to the doctor, go to the dentist, homework is due, science projects are due. So it was I think the hardest part is, like I said, not feeling very present, but having to continue to execute, your daily life. So that was just hard. But I'll tell you something I did. I would go through, I had like one foot in the past, one foot in the present, and then like this other foot in the future. So one of the things I would do was I would work on my day-to-day life, but I also did a lot of reviewing of the past because I wanted to get all the lessons that I had learned. I wanted to make sure that I didn't like leave anything on the table of like life that I had with him. So I did a lot of reviewing, like reading journals and looking back and just trying to make sure that I understood what the point of my relationship was with him, because we saw each other as destiny partners. I saw him as like, this is my destiny partner. So for him to pass away and I'm 35, there was like, I was trying to answer this question of like, what was that relationship then, God? If that's not my destiny partner that I'm going to grow old with, what did this mean? Like, what did this mean for me? What was this? What did we learn? How did we grow? So I spent a lot of time writing about those lessons, and I started sharing those things on social media. So that also is kind of what created this initiative that I started called Grace and Grief, because I would share a lot of stories. I just started storytelling because I'm trying to get it from myself real good. Yeah, but then other people are getting something out of me talking, and getting it's cathartic for me, but other people are learning and gleaning and being touched by it at the same time. So that was a lot of what I did as well. That helped me tremendously. We went to counseling, a lot of counseling, went to therapy. Yeah.
Wow.
Hi, I'm Darius Hillman. Joining me on the next edition of In the Arena, a champion of inclusion and belonging, the indomitable and stoic Nikki Lang.
Anyone that's new to DEI and B, this is definitely shaking their confidence.
Join the conversation Tuesday at 7 p.m. on CAN TV Cable Channel 19 and streaming on cantv.org and the CAN TV Plus app. Experience the power of community television.
Now, adding the layer of, we mentioned earlier, being a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
So you were still a stay-at-home mom up until his passing.
Yeah.
Financially, right? When you think about, okay, I haven't worked in how many years?
13. I hadn't worked in 13 years. Well, had it been 13? No, 11, 12 years when he passed. But
Right.
yeah.
I hadn't worked in 12 years. What do I do now?
Yeah. Yeah.
My husband was the breadwinner. Now I have 4 children to care for.
Yeah.
In addition to going back and getting the lessons and crying all day, like, what does that look like?
Yeah. Honestly, I had just graduated with my master's, so I had it in my heart. My intention was to start working. So I graduated with my master's degree in May 2017. So I had been looking for full-time jobs. So that was good because in a way it wasn't like I had intended to be a stay-at-home mom for much longer. He had a joke where he was like, listen, I'm gonna be a stay-at-home dad and we're gonna let you
We gonna switch.
How about no? We won't be doing that. But so we had this joke going. So we were both serious about me going on and starting to work. So that was a good thing because I had that in my heart. I had my bachelor's, I had my master's. I had done a lot of things, even though I wasn't working full time. I always stayed active, working part-time, working seasonally, volunteering, doing professional, volunteering where I can learn some professional skills and build a professional network. I had worked part-time for a while in domestic violence. So I had something, I was thankful. I was thankful that I had something, right? Because it wasn't like I'd just been home with these kids changing diapers for, 12 years. But so that was good. And certain people kind of asked me, what did I want to do? There were a lot of people that asked me, what do you want to do? People wanted to help. Well, send me your resume. And I would go on interviews. I would look into things. But a lot of what helped was obviously, you have insurance, you have like your GoFundMe if somebody creates that, and then you have your survivor's benefits, which is like Social Security. So I put together what I could put together, for the first couple of years between those three things, and just try to stretch the money to make it last so I could stay home for 2 years. A reason being because I was crying like I was crying. Because my kids were very all over the place. They were so young. I felt like it was better for me to maintain whatever life they knew for as long as I could. So the life they knew was that mom was stay-at-home mom. So I tried to continue that normal,
like a sense of normalcy.
A sense of consistency for them, as much as I could. And for me, it helped me too because that was what I understood. That was what I had been doing, so that was comfortable for me. So I did that. And then God opened up the door for me to start Grace and Grief. And so I just started to learn about business and ministry. And I would just I was basically studying that while I was still staying home with the kids for the first couple of years.
What have you learned about Grace and Grief? And are they twins? What I mean by that is, do you feel like, in your experience, grace and grief coexist?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is, because exactly what you're saying, because a lot of people were saying, when I started hashtagging Grace and Grief, people were like, okay, but is it grace after grief? And I was like, no, it's grace and grief. To me, what I've learned is good and bad coexist. When I was going through like the darkest points of all of this, God was still there. That was what I learned. God's grace was still there. So scripture says like his grace is sufficient, right? When you're weak, then I'm strong. So God's grace was still there. While I was going through, in the darkest moments, in the craziest moments, I still could see like favor, doors opening up, ways being made, and I just found like, okay, I'm in the grief, I'm in the dark time, but I can still see God's hand and I still feel his presence. And that was why I started calling it Grace and Grief. And it was to help other people too know that just because the bottom fell out of your life doesn't mean everything is over or there's no good, So that was why I called it that.
As you are figuring out life, how are you at that time, right after his funeral, right? How did your children feel? Like, what was, from your eyes, through your eyes, how did they cope?
People grieve, I think, a lot through their personality. So all of them had a different response. The oldest was very quiet. She kind of internalized her pain. She didn't really talk about much or say much. She just kind of went inward. The second oldest, she's more outgoing and emotional. So she was angry. Hers was anger. My son and my youngest daughter, they were 8 and 6. So for them, it was a lot. It took years for them really to wrap their mind around what happened. The brain, like cognitively, right, kids, their understanding of the permanency of death has to develop over time. So that was hard too, because we're all grieving in a staggered way. when I was grieving the most, maybe the younger two were like acting like daddy was out of town. He was going to come back. And then the older two were grieving heavy. Then when they started getting, maybe they had a breakthrough and they were coming to peace, then the second two went into real heavy grief. And they started understanding more what was going on and missing, understanding like this is what it means not to have a dad. Because they don't know until they get there. They don't know what it means to be. My son didn't know what does it mean to be a boy coming of age, not to have a dad until he got there. Then that smacked him hard and he began to grieve afresh. So with every milestone and with every age, and every stage and every new level of understanding, they were met with new grief, So that's been the journey of this, is raising children that have lost a parent. It's a long haul. It's a long term, constant adjusting, constantly checking in, going to counseling, going to programs, finding the support, working through the emotions. And so it is, I would say the beginning, we were all kind of numbed out. Like the first year, everyone's like, I do not remember that year. I don't remember my birthday that year. I don't remember Christmas that year. I'm like, I don't remember. I think just the trauma, you just don't remember a lot of detail. So a lot of the beginning, they don't remember. But as time has gone on, they're more active in their grief. But also, we learned how to make new memories. And I'll give you a story. A friend of mine always puts streamers on her kids' doors on their birthdays. So when they wake up, open the door, they walk into the streamers. So when Kenneth passed away, everything, grief, everything was just gray. Like life is everything is hard.
Yeah.
Every time somebody had a birthday coming up, it was like, oh God, not your birthday. Because I'm trying to think, how are we going to muster up enough joy, energy to do all this? And then it's grief hitting us because he's not here to celebrate. Right. So I started trying to come up with new ways to celebrate and put in new traditions and new fun things and new things to look forward to. So I took this idea of putting the streamers on the door, and I just started doing that for everybody's birthday every year. Oh. And so my youngest daughter, last year on my birthday, I hear somebody outside at 4 a.m., wrestling around and moving around the outside of my bedroom door. And when I woke up, she had put the streamers on my door. Oh. And so that showed me too, like that's some of the beauty that came through, some of the resiliency that you have as a family, you develop as a family. And so I realized that meant a lot to them, and for her, she was only 6, so she probably doesn't have any recollection of us not doing that. And she doesn't realize like this was just a feeble attempt
at trying to put some joy in the moment
so that you can remember. Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of just new traditions, finding ways to celebrate, trying to go out of town, took them to Disney, me trying to travel and go places and meet new people, just doing everything, being proactive about cultivating good times, good memories, good opportunities. Yeah. So, and over time, the joy came back, and we created a new normal. So there's still grief. Yeah. But also, also some grace and some joy as well.
Mm. What does self-care look like for a new-ish, because it's been 6 years now, single mother of 4? And working woman, business woman, and you handling all the things.
I've learned about myself that I need some days to do nothing. Like I need some white space. Like if I don't get just like, I don't have nowhere to go, I don't have nothing to do, I need some days on the calendar where I can do that. So I try to put that in. Another thing I learned is I like to go away like a staycation by myself.
They're great.
They're great. Before Kenneth passed away, I had never even stayed in a hotel by myself before.
Really?
I never rented a car by myself, And then every new thing I had to do, I start crying. I just start crying like, I don't know how to rent the car. I don't know how to I don't know how to book the hotel. Anyway,
A whole new world.
everything was hard. Yes, everything was hard. But so now I'm like, listen, you know what? I can go out of town, get my hotel, get my car, and I'm gone. I'm done. So yeah, I like to do a lot of that, traveling alone, staycations alone for the weekends. And then like the normal things, massage, you know, I'm one for a good massage. Getting my hair done or my nails done and going on walks. So praying, journaling, you know, all of those things really help fill me up. Reading, I love to read. So I like to read and study, you know, so all of that fills me up. But yeah.
When you think 10 years from now, what do you want your kids to say about you?
I want them to rise and call me blessed. Yeah, you know what I want, and I said this when we were in the thick of the first few years. I want them to look back and to remember, okay, and be able to say, my mom never stopped trusting God. She never turned her back on God. She continued to believe. And I also want them to say, and I want them to learn from me, just you don't give up. You just don't give up no matter if everything has fallen apart. Because literally in that experience for me, is literally everything is falling apart. That was what happened. You don't have a job, you don't have a spouse, you know, I didn't have somebody come move in and live with me. I had to figure it out. I had some support, but it wasn't that day-to-day support. And that has been something I've been angry about at times, grieved about at times, but I've kept going, and that's what I want my kids to say about me. Like, my mom kept going, and she kept a good attitude. She didn't go and was bitter. You know, she kept going and still loved people and loved God and loved us. I try to apologize to them as much as possible because I already know, right? When I mess up, hey, I'm so sorry, or even over the first 2 years, I went back after that when I really realized, like, I was not really present, you know, but you don't even know these things till you retrospect. You don't know that you're not present when you're not present. You don't know you're not present until you're present again on a greater level, and then you look back and you can see, oh, I wasn't even here, you know. So I had to go back and apologize to them for that. So I hope that they can say that too. Like, my mom took responsibility for things. If she messed up, she owned it. And that she was determined to do what God called her to do. She was not going to settle, and she was determined to be there for us. That's another thing I want them to see. Like, I'm devoted to them, you know.
Beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
As we close, what is one word you want to say to a woman, a mom, a wife who has recently become a widow?
It's going to get better. It's going to get better. I will also say, take your time. Take your time. Don't rush through the process. Grief is painful, but it's also a sacred work. It's a sacred experience. That's what I talk about through Grace and Grief. I let people know, like, you're going to grow through this if you let yourself grow through it. And it's going to get better. Take your time. Be gentle with yourself. Nurture yourself.
Beautiful. Well, I just feel so at peace. Thank you.
Thank
you for opening up several pages of your book and talking about joy, grief, in such a way that I can feel the reflection. So thank you, and I know that all who tune in will glean something too.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you for tuning in.